Hello everybody, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening depending on where you are in this amazing world. My name is Donovan Jolly and welcome everybody once again for another amazing video of DIY investing. Bitcoin has rebounded 80% plus from the lows that it made recently a couple weeks ago, and it's been proving all of the doubters wrong over the last couple weeks. All of the people that panic sold are now angry at themselves and are looking to FOMO in at resistance. I wanted to make a video today talking about my perspectives with Bitcoin. I wanted to talk about some bearish perspectives, some things that I'm expecting with how the market's playing out thus far, and some amazing fractals between the Nasdaq and gold that perfectly explain exactly where Bitcoin is going. I can promise you that by the end of this video, you're going to be so confident in all of your Bitcoin investments that you're going to be looking to add to them very soon, because what is coming is going to blow your mind. Make sure you guys stay to the very end of this video because these fractals are really going to change your perspective, and I think that this is something everybody should be talking about. If you're new and just finding this channel, always remember to do myself a favor by leaving a like, comment, and subscribing to this channel for more updates. Make sure you guys click that notification bell so you don't miss out on any new videos like the one provided for you here. If you guys are also looking for an amazing Discord community, I have my own private server with over 4,000 members and growing very rapidly. So if you actually want to congregate with a group of people, talk about crypto, and share your own perspective, you guys should definitely check out the server. On the Discord server, I also offer some of my more exclusive content like my video course and signals. The video course is 20 educational videos that teach you guys all of the strategies that I use to profit inside of crypto. So if you're somebody that wants to actually learn how to be a profitable analyst and day trade and invest in this market by yourself, I highly recommend that you guys check that one out. Now, the signals are actually a way for you guys to copy my long-term portfolio, all of the investments that I'm taking heading into this next bull cycle, entries, exits. Then you guys can also follow my portfolio management so you know exactly what percentages of my portfolio are allocated to each investment. With all that being said, I wanted to quickly say thank you guys so much for the support. I know that this market has been trying everybody, and it's really trying its hardest to shake everyone out, which is why I'm sitting here making these videos for you. I know how troubling it can be to see investments start crashing and start losing money, but you guys got to understand that this is a long-term prospect with Bitcoin, and we're always focused on the long-term trend, and that long-term trend has never looked better in my opinion. So let's dive into all of these charts so I can explain exactly what is going to happen, because I promise you it is going to blow your mind. So let's jump right in the video. Alright guys, so taking a look at Bitcoin first, I wanted to talk about some things on the short term, kind of my perspective regarding Bitcoin, some different scenarios that I'm actually watching for, because I think that it's really important that we talk about my overall trading plan, because there is a possibility that we could drop again, there's a possibility we could just keep going up, and it's very important that we talk about these things so we all kind of know what to expect together. Now, what I've been updating you guys with since all the way back down in here at 5K, I said that I was expecting a bounce into resistance. Once we hit resistance, I was expecting a short-term retest of these lows down in here. And so that's what I've personally been watching for. I did buy a little bit of Bitcoin at 5K. I haven't added to any other positions besides Ethereum yesterday. And so I've really just been kind of watching for Bitcoin to make its move. Now, what we're seeing currently is Bitcoin actually broke out of a shorter time frame, and we are continuing to impulse. But something I wanted to point out here is just the fact that we are sitting at a pretty solid resistance right now. And really, you can draw this a couple different areas. I would draw it about right here. I would say this zone is honestly a really strong resistance level. And that goes from about 76 to about 71.50. What I'm watching for, and what I still think that there is a possibility of, is an impulse up to about 8K, and we could go as high as 9K if the bulls really took charge here. Now, basically, let's go through these two different scenarios. Let's first go through my primary scenario, because I think that's the most important. Kind of what I'm expecting, and I posted a chart yesterday on Twitter that said that I was expecting 8K. I think that in this impulse, we should get to about 8K or somewhere close to that range before we do top out, considering that we did just break out of resistance today. Now, what I'm kind of expecting, a rise up to 8K, get rejected, and then fall back down. I don't actually think that it's going to go all the way back down to the bottom of these wicks. I personally am leaning towards about 5,500 to 5,300, and then I think that from there we would get a bounce, and then that would start the next uptrend, right? And so that's kind of what I'm watching out for in the market for Bitcoin currently. I still feel as if we're going to come back down, retest about 53 to 5,500, or roughly this consolidation that we saw right over here. I think that we'll retest either the high of this or the low of this breakout that we saw back at the first of the new year. And so this is one of the scenarios that I'm watching for here. Now, another scenario could be that we actually go a little bit lower. Maybe we go up to 8K. And then we drop and we go up to retest all the way down back at like 3,800. As long as we don't break below 3,100, in my opinion, we're going to be bullish, and this is a higher high. And this is really just a bulk rise that we're going to see on this new leg up. Because really, guys, this is just the first leg up, if this is in fact the bull cycle, which I have personally been believing it is since we reversed out of the bear cycle. So kind of what I'm seeing right now, this would be a little bit of a more alternative to where we drop a little bit lower. But regardless, I'm still expecting the same sort of outcome. I think that that would really create a tight squeeze, and we'd bounce out, and then, you know, we would go up into the next cycle. But realistically, both of my primaries look pretty much the same. Either we go down a little bit lower to retest the wicks, or we bottom at about 55 to 5,300 in that range. Now let's actually talk about a little bit more of a bullish scenario that I'm watching out for. Now, regardless, I have all of these scenarios drawn just so that we're all informed of what I'm kind of expecting. But with me being a long-term investor, really I'm just looking for 15 to 20% red days, and then I'm just kind of average into my long-term positions. I'm not really trying to do a whole lot of day trading until we start hitting the all-time high mark and breaking out of that, because at that point it's like shooting fish in a barrel, and it's actually really easy to make profit. Now, I've always told you guys that I'm a long-term investor, and so all of this short-term action really doesn't matter a whole lot to me, but I know that you guys care, and I know that it is important that we're all informed together, so I want to talk about it. Now, my bullish scenario is actually we go clear up to about 9K. If we ended up going clear up to 9K and then kind of retracing, I really don't find it likely that we're going to break back below this previous support. So the New Year support was about $6,400. We bounced, we sold through that support, and if we actually bounced all the way back up to 9K, I don't think that we're going to have to come all the way back down to 53 to 5,500 to retest. In fact, I find it much more likely that we would find support at about the New Year support, which would be about right here. And then at that case, we would start the impulse on the upside, something like that, right? And so these are really the primaries that I'm watching for currently. As far as an ultimate bearish scenario, there are bearish scenarios that I am watching for. One thing that I want to point out here, even though we are impulsing, you guys got to remember that this is declining volume on this impulse. I do like the volume that we saw with this sell-off. I think that this is very customary of what we see in capitulation volume, and we can actually see that right here. If I drop it to a monthly time frame and we take a look at the volume, we can see that every major reversal point inside of Bitcoin had a volume outbreak. One right there, the bottom was right here. We bounced, we get another volume outbreak, that's the top, and then we get another one right here. And I do believe that this is the bottom. I strongly believe that. But however, it's always important that we note that it is possible that we could drop lower. If that was the case, I would actually be expecting something like this. If this isn't capitulation, then I think the next leg down would be happening so fast that nobody would even have time to prepare for it if you didn't already expect it coming. And so kind of what I would expect to see is us sell off very, very quickly. And then, in my opinion, if we break support, I personally believe that we would go to about $1,200 to $1,000, but roughly right around there. And that looks ugly. Let me do that again. I think that we do something like this, and then nuke straight back down to about, $1,000. It would happen super, super fast. And that's kind of a probability that I don't find is likely. I don't think that we're going to break support. I've been telling you guys that for a significant portion of time. That's just not really what I'm expecting, but it is possible. And if we did, I think that we would drop all the way back down to at least 1,200, and we would go to probably 1,000. And so that's kind of what I would be watching for if, in fact, we did sell through support, because that, to me, would look like this. A big ABC correction. And I know you guys have been seeing this drawn around, and I haven't really taken it too seriously, and I still am not taking it too seriously, but it is a possibility that we have to consider. Even if I don't find it likely, I just wanted to make sure that you guys understand that this can happen regardless. So we just have to watch and see what happens with Bitcoin. But now, this actually takes me to the most important part of this entire video, and this is actually going to be me comparing the fractals that I see, because in my opinion, I think that what we're seeing currently happening in Bitcoin follows two of the best performing assets that we have ever had in history. And the fact that Bitcoin is following both of these cycles almost exact makes me feel very confident in the longevity of Bitcoin. And so let's go through here and actually analyze the fractals that I'm talking about. First off, we have gold, and I'm not going to get into too much detail because I've already made videos about this one, but basically this is the fractal that we have. So this is the fractal. With gold, it looks exactly the same as Bitcoin. Basically, you have the big cycle high, blow off top, we make our first lower high, then we sell back down, we find our short-term support, and this is really the support that holds us throughout the length of this consolidation. We can see that we just chop around here until finally, the lower highs get less significant, and we sell through support, make one more rounded bottom formation, one more sell-off into new lows, and then we go into price discovery. Now, I've been updating you guys with this because Bitcoin followed the exact same fractal. There's really no difference here. We get the blow off top, we make our first lower high, we fall back down to support. This is where we chop around, the lower highs get less significant. Eventually, the sellers become too great. We sell off, we go for one more lower low, rounded bottom formation, and then we break off into new all-time highs. Now, this is what I think is important because a lot of people have wrote off this gold fractal entirely because Bitcoin itself went to about right here, and then we sold all the way back down. As we can see here, gold just basically impulse went straight into new all-time highs, whereas Bitcoin sold off after 14K, and we actually had a 72% decline from high to low. And so I think a lot of people have forgot about this fractal, but that's how it actually takes me to the next part of this video, which is going to blow your guys' mind. Now, if we take a look here, this is the Nasdaq index, and really what I want to talk about here is the fact that I think that gold and the Nasdaq are really the two most fundamental, what's the word I'm looking for, are really the two best comparisons that we can look at from a fundamental perspective, because Bitcoin itself is known as a store of value. It's known as digital gold because we mine it. It's very, very similar to what we see with gold, right? So Bitcoin's always been deemed as digital gold. Now, the Nasdaq is really just an index for the biggest companies in the stock market, right? And so this is just an average graph of all of the biggest companies in the stock market. And so what I find interesting about that is the fact that Bitcoin is very similar to gold being a store of value, but it's also very similar to the Nasdaq because it's also kind of like a big index for all of cryptocurrency. Bitcoin leads the markets, and so whatever Bitcoin is doing, the rest of the market is going to follow. And this is why we use these indexes to actually base our analysis, because we know that if the average value is either going to drop or going to decline, we know how more likely than not that's going to affect the rest of the market. And so let's go through here and actually take a look at the Nasdaq, because I think that this is very, very striking how correlated these two are. Now, this is where it's going to be a little different. So the initial bear market decline from high to low was almost exactly 1 year. From the peak high to the bottom of the bear market was almost exactly 1 year's time. Now, this part follows gold, right? The bear market decline follows the price structure of gold identically. You guys already know that I've been updating you guys with that. But now, this is what takes us to the second phase, right here. So basically, this is our first impulse into this new bear or bull trend, right? Now, with gold, we just burst off into new all-time highs, and then everything was perfect for the investors that bought low. But Bitcoin's giving us a much more elongated correction, and it's giving us a great buying opportunity. And that's the thing that most people are squandering in this time. They are too scared because they just saw a 50% drop overnight in Bitcoin. They're too scared to even think about investing because, oh my gosh, it's going to fall into new lows and it's dead forever. When actuality, guys, if we take a look at the Nasdaq right here, we can see that we did almost the exact same pattern. This was the exact same correlation. Now, even though the bear market decline looks a little bit different, Bitcoin chopped around at 6K support and then fell at support, whereas the Nasdaq kind of just declined really rapidly. But that's not the point that we're looking at. The point that we're looking at is right here, after the bear market. This is the first impulse that the Nasdaq made. And we can see here that we bounced. We didn't quite go as high as Bitcoin, and if I pull up some Fibonacci, you guys will be able to kind of see here. We didn't go to the 618 because that's where Bitcoin topped out at. So Bitcoin topped out right here, whereas the Nasdaq peaked a little bit higher over the 382, right? But nonetheless, it still followed roughly the same sort of trajectory where after we did make our first impulse, we sold off significantly and came back down to retest almost the very bottom of these lows of capitulation, right? And I think that that's very interesting that we're seeing almost the exact same correlation in Bitcoin today. We had our first impulse, and then we came back down and then sold off to retest almost the very bottom of those lows. And I think that it's really exciting that we're seeing this because, with Bitcoin, we've always deemed it a store of value. We've always viewed it as digital gold. And so it wasn't surprising that Bitcoin followed the gold cycle, right? It really was not surprising in the slightest. But then what I thought was interesting was instead of just breaking off into new all-time highs, we started following the Nasdaq after this point. So after the bear market, the start of the bull market looks just like the Nasdaq. And even though there's going to be a little bit of a difference, this is still roughly the same sort of trend. And we can see that shortly what happened after was a very, very big increase in the Nasdaq. And I personally don't think that this is over. If I were to scroll out here and if I were to look at this on a bigger time frame, I personally think that we're going to get one more big blow off top, right? I don't know how high it's going to go, but I do believe that we'll get another blow off top, and that'll finally complete this bull cycle, right? Now, this takes me to the second part that I want to talk about here, because this is where it gets almost even more identical to Bitcoin. So basically, the Nasdaq had this long-term trend line. This was a 40-year trend line from 1974 until we actually sold through it in 2008. So the financial crisis, we sold through that long-term trend line. Had you been a long-term investor in this and had you seen this long-term trend line being breached, I can almost guarantee that every retail investor in the market at that time panic sold all of their positions. They were not interested in holding in this trend any longer. And guess what happened? We ended up breaking through that long-term trend line, and then we just burst straight off into new all-time highs. And you would have made almost a 7x return had you have bought the low and sold the top. Obviously, that's not realistic, but this is the same thing that we're seeing inside of Bitcoin today. And this is what takes me to the next chart. This is something I've been updating you guys with. I've showed you that every single bull cycle, the only way that we can start the next bull trend is if we break the previous trend line of the last cycle, we fall through, and then we start a brand new uptrend. And we can see that this has happened 3 times now. The first cycle, we held this long-term trend line. We got the top of the cycle, we sold off through that trend line, went to new lows, and then we started a brand new bull run in its place. And then the same thing happened. Blow off top, we start selling off, we break through that long-term trend line, and then a brand new bull run starts in its place. And so this current cycle that we've been in has behaved a little bit different. This cycle is a lot longer in duration, and the bear market decline from the top to the low actually didn't see us break through. That was the first time, because all the other times that happened. And whereas this one, we sold off, we made our first higher high, and then we broke through that. And so this is what reminds me very strikingly of the Nasdaq itself, is because these two are following each other very, very closely. We can see that this was our long-term trend line. We impulsed, came back down to retest it, first impulse, and then we sold through that. This is almost the exact same thing that we saw in the Nasdaq. Long-term trend line, we bounce off of it in the bear market, make our first higher high, and then we sell through it. Come back down, retest our primary lows at capitulation, and then we start a brand new bull cycle. And so this to me, guys, ladies and gentlemen, is actually what I'm going to be watching for. I think that long term, Bitcoin looks better than it ever has. I'm very, very confident in my Bitcoin investments. I'm very confident in my altcoin investments as well. And I just see a ton of fear in the market right now. A lot of people are bearish. A lot of people are expecting lower lows. I think on the short term, we will sell off soon. Obviously, I gave you guys my scenarios that I'm personally going to be watching for, so you guys know what I'm expecting moving forward. But guys, what we can see here, each one of these red lines, before I wrap up this video, each one of these red lines is the halving. This was the first halving, and then we saw a massive impulse shortly after in Bitcoin. This was the second halving. I bought my first Bitcoin, let's see here, would have been right here. Bought my first Bitcoin right there. We impulse, have the next halving, we sell off, and then we have another massive price swing, just like the last one, right? Now, guys, we're less than 40 days away from this third halving, and each of the last 2 times that it's happened, we've seen a monumental increase inside of Bitcoin's price, and so I'm strongly expecting that this is going to play out again, and who knows, I could be wrong. Maybe this trend doesn't hold true, and we actually sell off, and, you know, we start an elongated bear trend. It's always a possibility to consider, but for me personally, I think that everything that we're seeing inside of the global markets, all of the turmoil, all of the chaos, Bitcoin was perfectly created for this exact scenario. It was spawned directly after the 2008 world financial crisis, and now that we're finally starting to see the effects of us kind of putting the bandage on the 2008 financial crisis, there's leaks, there's holes in the boat, water's rushing in, and Bitcoin is the savior. Bitcoin is the life raft that we all need to be jumping on. In my opinion, gold, silver, and Bitcoin, these commodities are going to do very, very well. I think that oil is another good one. But for me personally, I'm an investor in Bitcoin. I'm a long-term investor in Bitcoin. I've been planning for this exact scenario to happen in the world, not necessarily a pandemic, but a global crash. And you guys got to understand that if the dollar hyperinflates, it's going to be a domino effect that cascades to every other fiat currency out there, because America is the global power system and structure. And so what I'm seeing currently with Bitcoin really makes me more bullish than ever. And I don't understand the bearish sentiment. I do understand the different arguments here. Like, we do have the declining volume, but if we drop this to a monthly time frame, basically every single reversal point of Bitcoin has breakout volume. And guys, this is what we're starting to see. Every single time we have major breakout volume, it's a major reversal point inside of Bitcoin. And so the fact is, we've had a lot of volume that came in here. Whether it's sell volume, buy volume, it doesn't matter. What I was watching for was a close above the New Year support, and we got that, right? And so even if we come back down and retest, 53, 5,500, it's not going to change my long-term nature of Bitcoin. I'm still going to be buying this. I think that now is a great opportunity. Really, we had a massive buyback from the bottom of that wick. That's like, good Lord, 67%. You just don't see that in a bearish market. I mean, anytime a dip gets bought up that quickly, in my opinion, obviously there's a reason why it bought up that quickly, and it's because people are buying it and they're investing in this. They see the long-term prospect, and they don't care about all of this short-term action. And so, guys, what we're seeing here is an exact correlation between the Nasdaq, an exact correlation between gold, and Bitcoin is taking the two of the best performing assets of all time, and it's creating a one universal chart. And I think that that's amazing. I think that if you're a long-term investor, things could not be more exciting than they are now. And in fact, all of this sell-off was a monumental buying opportunity, one that we most likely will not see again. And if we do, you guys should definitely be jumping on that, because I can promise you that what we saw, a 72% decline from high to low, is just uncharacteristic of any other cycle that we've seen thus far, and it really did provide us for an excellent buying opportunity. So make sure you guys are using all of these as an opportunity, because I don't think that we're going to see too much more of them, especially not at these low prices. So with all that being said, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you found any value in this, always remember to do myself a favor by leaving a like, comment, and subscribing to this channel for more updates. Make sure you guys click that notification bell so you don't miss out on any new videos like the one provided for you here. If you guys want access to my Discord, it's totally free. However, on my Discord, I also offer some of my more exclusive content, like my video course and signals. So if this is something that interests you, or you guys just want to join a community, you guys make sure you guys check that out by clicking in the description of this video. There you're going to find the invitation link to my Discord server. Join there, shoot me a message, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. With all that being said, I'll catch you guys in the next video. As always, peace out.